just want to say a huge thank you for everyone coming along today, taking the time out to spend this time with us. Whether you're a professional carer, you work within the care sector, or you're a carer at home, it's great to see you all here this afternoon. For those who don't know me, my name's Isabel Jones and I'm the CEO at Alive Activities, and I'll share a little bit more later about what we do. I've had the pleasure of working with Brace and Tony from Bristol Dementia Action Alliance in putting this event together. It's our second. We had our first last week and we did get some really good feedback, and as always with things like this, you have a few technical hiccups and things like that, but it did seem to go really smoothly and we got some lovely feedback. So this is our second event, and we are hoping as a group of charities that it will be the first of many events and that we can work together. And before I ask Amanda and Tony just a couple of questions, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping, if that's okay. If possible, can everyone keep themselves on mute unless you are actually asking a question? It's easiest, and we then don't hear people's dogs and children and things like that. Timekeeping, we are going to try and keep to 60 minutes. We've all got really busy lives and are probably getting slightly zoomed out. I know I am. I had about 6 meetings the other day, and yeah, it's very tired at the end of it. So we do have 4 speakers, and to keep them in line, I've got various things that I'll put behind me, which will be sort of 5 minutes that they've had, and then 1 minute to go. And then a big emoji shush sign if they've gone over their limits, so they get told off by me if they've spoken too much. We do want people to be able to ask questions and interact, so we are inviting questions to be shared, but can we do this by the chat function, which you've all got at the bottom. What we'll do is I'm going to allow 2 questions during a speaker, and if they can be put on the chat function to me, and then I'll read those out at the end. And then we've got 10 minutes at the end for a question and answer. And again, if you can put those in the chat function, and then we'll do that. So the first thing I want to do is actually just find out where you're all from. So Ben, would you put up the first poll, please, just to find out what people's backgrounds are and what they're doing. Are you able to do that, Ben? Yeah. So if you are you all able to answer that for us now, please, just to tell us what your role is and where you are working. That's brilliant. You can see the results coming in really quickly. That's fantastic. Brilliant. Okay. Ben, do you want to end the results? Let's see what they are now. Brilliant. Okay, so we've got 67% of you working in the health and social care sector, 14 who are carers, and 19% are with a relative. So that's a really interesting mix. It just helps us to know sort of future what we're looking at. So brilliant. Right, do you want to take those off, Ben? That's great. So what I'm going to do now is just ask Amanda and Tony a couple of questions. As I said, this has been put together by Alive and by Bristol Dementia Action Alliance and by Brace. We're forming together a very small organisation called the Bristol Dementia Charities Network. And we've been talking a little bit before lockdown about how to work together. But I think lockdown really and the corona really sort of helped us to think about how we could and come up with something tangible. So Tony, what would you say? How and why did the Bristol Dementia Charities Network come about?
Well, it came about because you, Mark, and yourself were talking about how we can work together and perhaps support carers and people with dementia during lockdown. And we also thought that forming a network would be a good way of doing that, because we can share our experience and our resources to meet the needs of carers and people with dementia.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really fantastic to be able to work together. I mean, we need to collaborate because we all have the same aim, and that is to alleviate the suffering or end the suffering of dementia, and that's really all we want to do.
Yeah, and it's been, as you said, it's so good to be able to work together and share ideas and pool resources, I think, in limited time, and to support each other. And what's lovely about our network is we've all got our different strengths and so we can really support each other and really help the people of Bristol. And so what would you say, Tony, the advantages of sort of working with other organisations?
Well, as I say, we can share our expertise, we can share our experience, we can share our resources, and we can meet a wider group of people, really.
Yes, reach more people. It's important.
Absolutely. And I think from a personal point of view as well, just supporting each other as well as charities has been really important, I think. It's been, and I know I'm not the only one in saying this, as charities, it's been really tough. And I think actually, you know, a lot of staff have been on furlough, so to be able to have that interaction between each other has been absolutely fantastic. And we've seen it on a wider basis in the city. So to have something tangible come out of this is really exciting. So I'm going to hand over to Tony. I'm going to start sharing his slides for him. Tony's obviously the chair of Bristol Dementia Action Alliance, but he's also a carer. And I've met Barbara, and she's just the most amazing. Well, you're the most amazing couple, Tony, really. And
Checks in the post, Isabel.
Pardon?
The check's in the post.
Well, I first met Barbara. It's just a little story when I became the CEO of Alive in November, and it was one of the, I think it was my second week, and I was finding it quite overwhelming. I think it was quite scary. It was quite daunting, sort of, you know, being the CEO of quite, you know, of a charity. And I went to see Tony, and we had a meeting in his kitchen, and Barbara was there, and I went and sat and said hello to her, and she grabbed my hand, and she didn't let go of my hand for about an hour and a half, and we sat in that meeting, and I couldn't take any notes at all. But actually, she knew what I needed. You know, she's living with quite advanced dementia, but she knew I needed that touch and I needed that comfort. And it was amazing, and I don't think I'll ever forget that, about her warmth and her love, which comes from Tony as well. So, yeah, Tony, do you want to share your story now about being a carer in lockdown?
Okay, well, lockdown has affected all of us in different ways, and certainly that's no exception for carers and people with dementia. People with dementia are confused, they're asking what's going on, the whole world is turned upside down. And of course, we tell them, well, that we've got a world pandemic, and they say, well, what's that? And you might explain it, but then again, 2 minutes later, they're asking the same question because they've got memory problems and they can't retain it. You talk about social distancing, they haven't got a clue what you're talking about. They're also isolated because all their activities, if they had any, have stopped. Barbara used to go to a day centre, singing for the brain, used to go to a memory cafe. Other people with dementia might go to other activities. Carers go to carer support groups. All that stuff has stopped. And of course, people with dementia are saying, well, why can't we go out? Why am I so restricted? And then later on, as lockdown eases, well, where can we go anyway? Why can't I see my family or my friends? They may also be feeling insecure and become clingy. In actual fact, this week I've just bought Barbara a therapy doll called Emily, and it's the size of a toddler. And Barbara used to be, well, she is a nursery nurse, so she's worked with children all her life. And you sit Emily on her lap, and she's happy as Larry. She just sits there cuddling this doll, laughing away and looking into her eyes. Really, it's taken the pressure off me a little bit. People with dementia are also frightened or scared. Things have changed. They might be asking, well, what's wrong with me? They might be having carers coming into the home, and carers look different. You know, they're wearing masks. I mean, they look on the telly and they see carers dressed like astronauts. There may be a difference in body language. For someone who's deaf and is used to lip reading, that might be a totally different problem. There might be little or no brain stimulation, whereas before they used to do TV or crosswords or Sudoku, jigsaws, puzzles, that sort of stuff. Can they do that anymore? Because they're probably worried. And a lot of what you can do with people with dementia depends at what stage they are with their dementia anyway. And of course, as lockdown eases, we can perhaps go out for a walk, or we can ride in the car and do things like that. People with dementia may even be frustrated, even angry. And when they're angry, some people with dementia can become violent. They miss the contact, they miss touch, they miss hugs, they miss laughter, they miss loads of things. So if these are the issues for people with dementia, what are the issues for people looking after them? What are the issues for carers? Well, carers aren't able to care as they normally would. Lockdown has brought a change in routine, adapting to a change that we didn't expect. And we need to adapt to that change as well as the progression of the dementia. There's little or no respite. I've been looking after Barbara 24/7 since the 13th of March, except for this afternoon when two very kind ladies have taken Barbara out for an hour for me, which is very kind of them. Carers don't mind caring, you know, they just need a bit of time off now and again. And because they're working 24/7, they might be tired, they might be exhausted. If they don't get a good night's sleep, if their sleep is broken, again, that can lead to tiredness or even exhaustion. And they're not able to see their family. This applies to people with dementia and the carer. Zoom is okay, but you can't hug a laptop, can you?
No.
Okay, so what are we doing about it? So this is what BDA is doing about it, and thanks. Can you go back a slide, Isabel? Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, yeah, go on to the next one. Right, so what we do, if people are going to deal with someone with dementia, they need to know what dementia is, how to identify it, and how to support and work with that person. So we offer dementia awareness sessions, which are generally an hour long and they're free. Since COVID-19, we've actually shifted this onto online. Next slide, Isabel. We've also been running dementia workshops for people in the community who work with or want to work with people with dementia. These are generally 3 hours long. And again, because of COVID-19, we've actually shifted these onto online. Next slide. This week, we actually did a building audit. Well, you might say, well, how can you do a building audit? Well, buildings are shut. Well, some buildings, because they're shut, they can actually send one person into that building with our audit form, and they can actually do the audit with the form and then ring us up, and we can go through the form together by phone. And we actually did our first one this Monday. So we can do building audits. And when we get back to whatever resembles normal, we can perhaps do a building audit with you or the place you work in. Next one. We run a memory cafe. We run Happy Days at Westbury Baptist Church. And if you want to set up a memory cafe, we can actually help you to do that. We've helped different groups set up a couple of memory cafes in Bristol already. Our Happy Days is closed at the moment, but all our volunteers are gifted. We got 23 volunteers and about 60 people coming. So we've given each of our volunteers 2 or 3 people to ring weekly just to make sure that they're okay, that they've got their basic needs, and also just to see how they are and have a chat, because again, that helps with isolation. We've also run other virtual events. We have a pom-pom dancing session a couple of weeks ago, and next Friday is our 7th birthday. And so what we're doing, we're going to have a story time session led by a guy called Michael Lola. So these are a couple of things we're doing in memory cafes. Next one. We also send out a BDAA newsletter weekly. Normally we would issue a quarterly newsletter, but because there's so much going on at the moment, we're getting so much information sent to us that could be useful to someone going through lockdown or caring for someone with dementia. And so we put that into a BDAA e-news and we send that out weekly. There's also signposts to other agencies because, as we said right at the beginning of this, we want to work together with other charities. And we do have strong links with quite a lot of charities, particularly if they're dementia related. Next one. So this is a summary of what I've really just said. We do all this stuff for free, but of course, anybody that wants to donate to us, like all charities, and particularly at this time, because charities are really suffering, you're very welcome to do that. Next one. And that's our final slide. We're trying to increase the awareness of dementia amongst the communities of Bristol. When I say communities, Bristol is a diverse city. We have got projects going on with the BAME communities, the Chinese Women's Group, Duck Bell, Black Carers. We're working with all of these because, as I say, Bristol is a diverse city and we want to work with everybody. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Tony, for that. I love hearing your story, and yeah, it's just brilliant to hear how the Action Alliance have grown. I think I'd encourage everyone to go along to your, if we can, to your party. I just wondered as well if anyone's got any questions for Tony. I haven't had anything in the message actually to see if there are any questions. If you just want to type them up quickly and then I can read them out. We'll have a couple. One of them came up actually and just said, will slides be available? And Richard's answered and saying yes, they will be shared, and there will be a follow-up email as well at the end, which will sort of signpost people to different things as well. So I'll give, does anyone want to ask any questions, or everyone okay? I think, oh, hang on, I think there's one just come in now. What about those with no access to internet IT? In terms, are we talking about in terms of resources and support? Well, we've actually been running some what we call telephone conference groups actually. We've been, so we've got an open one on a Wednesday. So people are, if they want to find out about that, it's actually on our website. But that's an open group, and people can come and join, and it's about bringing people together and supporting. We've actually found that it is an issue. I think IT, and it's a real problem. And I think it's something that we do need to address. We're talking to various organisations about supporting older people to come online a lot more, but actually using possibly the TV and then also using the telephone a lot more. Tony, have you got anything else you'd like to add to that one? Oh, you're on mute. So oh, he's just muted himself. Okay. Tony, you're still on mute. We didn't hear you then. We'll come back to him. What's the most common theme coming from the volunteer? Yeah, Tony, can you unmute yourself? Jill's got a question for you. What's the most common theme coming from the volunteers' phone calls? Can we ask? Hang on 2 secs. There we go.
Most of them are coping. They've got good neighbours, good family. One of our volunteers is actually doing the shopping for the person she's ringing, two elderly sisters, so she's doing their shopping, which is really good and kind. But a lot of them are struggling with the fact that they have to stay at home, and I think the big problem is that they can't see their family, particularly their grandchildren. And I think one of the main things to come out of this, not just for people with dementia and their carers, I think that one of the main things to come out for everyone is the importance of touch and feel, and how important our family really are, because we're all rushing around like idiots most of the time, trying to fit everything in. We need just to slow down and think about what's really important in our life. And that's coming from people with dementia and their carers as well. Yeah, I'd second that. As a mum who normally runs around for 3 children, it's been lovely not to have to do that actually, and something I don't necessarily want to go back to. So, as I said, we're going to carry on in terms of time. I'm going to be doing that with Nikki, who is a live service delivery manager, couldn't make it today, so I've actually got a video
that I'm going to share that she pre-recorded. So we're hoping that the tech works, because this is another trial for us. But for those of you who don't know, I'm just going to quickly talk very, very quickly about Alive. We're a charity. We're based in Bristol. We work predominantly with care homes and people living in the community with dementia. We deliver engagement and activity sessions, and have done for nearly 10 years. And we look at poetry, we look at music, we look at physical activity, we look at gardening. But for us, it's the importance of the quality of life for older people, that actually they're getting the engagement and activity that they really need and really deserve. So I'm going to share with you now Nikki's video. This is a few ideas on sort of the kind of activity you can do in lockdown with people living with dementia. So fingers crossed this all works, and let me know if you can't hear.
Hello, my name's Nicola Taylor, and I'm the Services Manager for Alive Activities in Bristol. And today I'm going to be talking to you about meaningful engagement and activities for people living with dementia at home during lockdown. And I'm going to be showing you a slideshow and talking you through it. So here we go. If you care for someone who is living with dementia, a shared activity can make both of you happier and able to enjoy your time together. And this is especially more important during this time of lockdown. With so many restrictions, you may not be able to leave the house as much and pursue your usual interests together. So at the moment, it's even more important that you seek activities within the home. We all know the importance and benefits of activities. They can and do improve well-being for everybody, and they allow you to be sociable and creative, and physically active as well. And they might also help you to sleep at night, which is always a bonus. So for the purpose of today's webinar, I'm going to concentrate on just a small part of activity, something that ticks all the boxes with physical, cognitive, sensory and practical types of activity. And this is life story work. So life story work is not purely about reminiscence and looking at the past. Also, it's not about testing a person's memory ability, but what it is about exploring a person's unique story in order to help them feel safe and grounded in familiarity. Again, essentially, this is so important at the moment when things seem so uncertain, and we're living a life that's completely different to normal, the new normal they're calling it. So anything that we can do to help a person feel more grounded and safe is a bonus. Life story work can involve looking back on the past, but also forward to future hopes. And it can help you to understand each other better as well. It can be a fun way of sharing information about each other and sharing stories. And can be done in so many different practical ways. And I'm going to talk you through some of these now. So the best way to be, I think, with life story work is as spontaneous as possible, and not planning anything in too much depth. So it's ideal to do some life story work with objects that you can find around the house. Maybe go and see what's in the attic or in some of those drawers that you've been meaning to go through for a long time, but to find objects that are meaningful to the person and use them as conversation starters. For example, something like this. I'm not sure if any of you know what that is, but that is a sea fishing float. So if you were to give this to somebody who is a keen fisher person, they may hold on to this and examine it, and it may bring back feelings of familiarity or emotions, hopefully positive emotions, and maybe memories. It could trigger memories for that person as well. It's always best to use objects, I think, when exploring life stories with people, especially people living with dementia. Sometimes verbal prompts are not enough, and they need something physical that they can explore to trigger a memory. They might not respond verbally, but that's okay. Sometimes recognition or just a smile is enough. So another way for exploring life stories is through music, and we all know about the benefits of music and people living with dementia, or benefits for everybody, whether they have dementia or not. And I love this quote: with the right sort of music, you either forget everything or remember everything. And I think that's really true. So using music to explore life stories can recall the past and play to the person's strengths. And it's a very enjoyable activity for all family members. Using objects is a good idea, something like an old record. This one is Dave Dee, Dozy, Beaky, Mick and Titch, News of England. That might mean something to somebody. It could be an important record for them. But also the movement and the sound of music to stimulate memories as well. And music can help to maintain a sense of identity. For example, I am a Bruce Springsteen fan. That's part of my identity. Others may obviously prefer others. But again, it's that grounding of who you are as a person. Also, there's been lots of research, which I'm sure you know about how music can help people living with dementia to feel less anxious and depressed, and take them back to their personhood. So have a look at exploring music together. Find out what makes your loved ones tick. Find out what makes them feel happy and start playing it. Now we move on to a sensory approach. So these are the types of activities that are fine for everybody, actually, but they work particularly well with people who are living with later stage dementia. And it's all about stimulating the senses and promoting feelings of well-being, but can also trigger memories as well. So using smell, for example, did you used to wear Old Spice when you were first courting? Maybe that might bring back powerful memories for a person. Using sound, for example, the sound of the sea could bring back memories for a person of a holiday that you had in Italy 30 years ago. But again, could bring back a feeling of well-being and familiarity and safety for a person. Touch, there's not been a lot of touch going on in lockdown, and I think people are really missing that. So opportunities to hold hands and maybe massage your loved one's hand to offer comfort. Again, maybe different creams that have different smells that might evoke memories as well. Taste perhaps a memorable meal, fish and chips on a Friday night, or a lovely meal that you had when you were on holiday in Italy. And of course, using sight, pictures, photographs, etc. Moving on. Using technology. So we're in the technology age. Most of us are using iPads, etc. at the moment for things like Zoom and FaceTime and keeping in touch. But there are lots of other ways that you can use technology in exploring life stories. So internet searches for things like BBC Your Memories, which is a website that I recommend, and British Pathé. Bristol Born and Bred has a huge archive of photographs of Bristol's past, which is really great for local people. There are bespoke apps that have been designed for people living with dementia, such as Tangible Memory Story Creator and My House of Memories. Look them up, they're really good. But you can use your creativity in making life story collages using Pic Collage. And if you don't know how to use that, ask a teenager. They all know how to use it. And here are Alive's conversation cards. These are free to download and print off from the Alive website. The website address is there on this slide. And these are used as conversation starters with a range of topics and themes to get people talking and prompting memories and giving opportunities to share stories. So I strongly suggest that you have a look at those and print them out. Finally, I'd just like to say, try all sorts of different things. Some things might work one day, but maybe not work another. But don't give up. Keep trying. And don't be disheartened if things aren't working today. It might work tomorrow. The important thing is just keep trying. Enjoy yourselves. And you never know what kind of things might happen. So thank you for watching.
Brilliant. So that's Nikki. So hopefully you all got to see that okay. I'll just have a quick look and see if we've got any questions. The other thing I was going to say, we've actually got Jill here from Playlist for Life, and I know we actually didn't mention that at all in that video, so I don't know, Jill, do you just want to take sort of a minute quickly just to explain a little about Playlist for Life, because again it's a brilliant resource for people living with dementia.
Thanks very much, Iz. Yes, I don't know if people can see me.
Yeah.
We're on speaker. Yeah, good. So hi, my name's Jill and I work for Playlist for Life, which is a national music and dementia charity. Basically, we want everybody to have their own personal playlist, and for families, friends and carers to know how to use it. And we've got lots of brilliant online things to help you. If you just Google Playlist for Life, you'll find it if you are on the internet. But if you're not, there's also things, ways that we can help as well. So we've got a booklet which comes up backwards, which is possibly create the soundtrack of your life, and that just gives you lots of ideas for sort of a bit of music detective work with somebody, and starting places around the music that's personally special and meaningful for somebody. In Bristol, as part of the Coronavirus Support Hub, I'm starting a phone group especially for people with dementia alongside a carer, a family member, on Monday afternoons at 2 o'clock, and that's going to be specifically a phone group, so that's for people who can't access the internet, and it's going to be a small group where, you know, we'll chat and we'll share and enjoy music memories together, and through that group I can also help people to start build their playlist. So thank you very much for the opportunity, Is, and I'll put my contact details on the chat.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jill. That's great. It's really good to be able to share and support all the work that we're all doing. So Amanda has been amazing today. Mark from Brace has had internet issues, so he actually can't present. So Amanda jumped into the shoes about 2 hours before, I think it was, wasn't it? About
yes.
12. So she's done amazingly well. So I'm going to share her slides for her, and we'll go from there. So yeah, I've just realised as well, I can't actually then put up my "you've gone too long" bit as well. So but we'll get for you, but I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine. So I'll hand you over to Amanda.
Thank you, Isabel. Thank you. Yes, good afternoon. I'm going to say a few things about the research and support that Brace has been involved with over the last 3 months during the COVID lockdown. But first, I really need to explain what Brace does and what the current emergency has done to the work we support. So Brace is a charity. We're based at the Bristol Brain Centre at Southmead Hospital, and we fund research into dementia. Our work is aimed at understanding the causes of dementia, which are complex, achieving earlier diagnosis before irreversible brain damage is done, and developing treatments that will slow or hopefully stop dementia from progressing. In short, our work is about defeating dementia, saving future generations from what so many people are going through now. We raise money and we award grants to scientists and clinicians in universities and hospitals in South West England and in South Wales. This includes the Bristol Brain Centre and the South West Dementia Brain Bank, both based at Southmead. I shall say more about the Brain Centre in a moment. We also work to share the benefits of research with the general public. For example, what we have learned about how our lifestyle choices can increase or reduce your risk of a diagnosis. Third slide, thank you. So the COVID-19 emergency has a huge and damaging impact on dementia research. Much of the research is supported by charities, and we have all lost funds as the lockdown has hit. Our events have been cancelled, some very long in the planning, and of course business can no longer support us because they've been shut down for the duration, and so on. Research itself has been affected too, because universities have had to close their laboratories. Clinical research, where researchers work very closely with patients and other volunteers, is generally impossible if people can't get within 2 meters of one another. So there's a lot of disruption there. However, some projects will need additional grants to extend them so that they can be completed. So we need to fundraise hard. This is one of the major challenges in the months ahead. But it's not all doom and gloom. I mentioned the Bristol Brain Centre at Southmead. There are a couple of things I can mention which show how the research team has adapted to the COVID emergency. The clinical research team there is an NHS team, doctors, nurses and psychologists who provide patient care while also carrying out research. They are led by Dr. Liz Coulthard. Next slide, please, Isabel. So they found themselves unable to continue their research, but came up with the idea of an online survey to keep part of the research going. This is called SleepQuest and studies sleep quality, mental health and circadian rhythms in older people. The researchers believe that the crisis has led to many people experiencing disruption to sleep and their circadian rhythms, and that some people will go on to develop chronic sleep problems. Some will find strategies to improve their sleep and well-being, but in the longer term, poor sleep may hasten the onset or progression of dementia. This risk is likely to be highest in the over 50s. Grace is part funding this project and has also been helping to publicise it. I'm pleased to say that the public response has been huge to this. Fifth slide, please. The other thing I want to mention, again at the Brain Centre, is the Dementia Clinic Research Nurse. This is a post that was created through Brace funding last year and is now in its second year. It's an essential role for ensuring that vulnerable patients receive the best possible care year-round. The specialist nurse offers patients support and advice, the chance to ask questions, and as soon as the current crisis is over, the opportunity to participate in important research. During the pandemic, the nurse and her colleagues have adapted their service to support large numbers of people via a telephone service. With research stalled and some of their colleagues redeployed to care for coronavirus patients, they have stepped up their work in other areas, offering telephone reviews and welfare checks to all their patients. And these can be more than, I think they have a caseload of over 500. But the kind of help they can do for their patients is, talking about the problems around social distancing and isolation and being isolated. They can be there on the phone to offer support. Also, simple things like those struggling to receive groceries when they've been told to stay inside and there are no delivery slots from supermarkets. This is difficulty, and some of the nurses have helped out here. They deal with patients with increasing confusion, of course, and the nurses over the phone need to identify the cause. Is it due to their environment, or is it because they have an infection that needs treating? And there are patients with rarer conditions, of course, who do not obviously fit into the identified vulnerable groups, as their dementia took hold whilst they were young. No less in need of support, but less visible in the community. We are currently raising funds to ensure that the nurse post can be maintained after March next year. If you want to help us keep it going for the benefit of patients and carers, please use the link that we'll send to you in an email after this session. I'm very grateful to you for listening. Thank you. Thanks, Isabel.
Thanks, Amanda. That was great. Absolutely brilliant. So I'm just going to see if we've got any questions. Yeah, so far we haven't got any questions. We've just got people sharing details and things like that. So I think what we'll probably do, see if store up the questions hopefully for a bit later. But Amanda, luckily we've it's been really good to have Alison, from Mind Somerset. They've been able to support us, and obviously it's really important that carers are looked after and find time for themselves. And we felt this was a really important part of the time today. And Alison did a brilliant presentation last week, and actually after the webinar, I actually took the afternoon off because I'd realised that I actually needed some time. And I think for all of us, it's quite an overwhelming time, and to be able to ensure that we're looking after all ourselves is really important. So I'll hand you over to Alison now. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Isabel. Let me just share my screen with you. The panic of technology, much like everybody else, really. Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. So when I did this presentation last week, it's a bit of a whistle-stop tour because this session is usually done in about an hour, but I'll do my very best to condense it into 10 minutes. And I know that Isabel will give me very subtle reminders when I need to stop talking. So first of all, a little bit about Mind and Mind in Somerset. So Mind, as I'm sure most of you know, is a national charity which looks directly to provide services directly for people, to support people with mental health problems, and also raises awareness as well. There are around about 150, I think, independent minds across the country, and Mind in Somerset is one of those. And I'm very aware that I'm a little bit off patch today because Bristol is not part of Somerset, but I'm very grateful to be here. The independent part of that is really important because all the local county minds do their own fundraising. So if you ever do any fundraising for Mind, please be aware that it needs to go to your local Mind and not national Mind, otherwise it won't be for the services that you provide. So that's just a little bit about Mind in Somerset and national Mind. But I want to look really quickly at mental health and what is mental health. And we hear a lot of talk about it, don't we, these days? It seems that you can't turn on the news or look at social media without some reference to mental health. And I heard something which I thought was really quite distressing the other day, that there were experts talking on the television, as there are a lot these days, but there were experts who are now saying that the effects on people's mental health as a result of the coronavirus pandemic is likely to long outweigh the effects of people's physical health who have actually had the virus, which, if you think about it, is really quite shocking. It's more likely to affect more people, many more people. It's estimated that around about 1 in 4 people have mental health issues, 1 in 4 adults at any one time, but also that the effects of it are likely to be very, very long lasting. But what do we mean by mental health? I mean, we all have mental health. If we didn't, we wouldn't be alive. The reality is that our mental health is on a spectrum. So there's good mental health and there's poor mental health. And most of us, as sentient human beings, we will be on that. It will be a movable feast where we are on that spectrum. And it can be movable within the day, within the hour sometimes. So sometimes we could wake up in the morning and be in a really good mood, everything's tickety-boo, and then there'll just be a few triggers throughout the day which will really bring us down and really affect our ability to be able to concentrate and focus and make decisions. Now, that happens to all of us. That's just life. But when we're talking about mental health illness and mental health issues, and when it becomes a problem, is when we are consistently at the bottom end of that spectrum for probably 2 weeks or more, a doctor would say 2 to 3 weeks or more, and then are unable to find our way out of it. So that's really when it starts to become a mental health illness or problem. And I'd encourage us all, if we possibly can, to take the time to think about where we are on that spectrum, because if we're aware, if we have self-awareness, then it's much easier for us to be able to deal with our own mental health in the first place. So before I give you some really quick tips about how to look after your mental health in lockdown and easing lockdown, I wanted to state this, that this is the bleeding obvious, I know, but these are not normal times. And because these are not normal times, it means that we are all reacting to things differently. And that's quite normal. So we really shouldn't be beating ourselves up about that. And actually, different people's ability to be able to deal with different things are different as well. So most of us have had sudden and enormous changes to our lives from, I think it's now 101 days ago that we went into full lockdown, and that caused shock for a lot of people. I know it did me for the first 2 weeks. But actually, people's reaction to that is really quite different. And for some people, it might have had no effect on their mental health whatsoever. For others, may have experienced some sort of low-level anxiety, depression. For other people, and I know one or two of these, where they've really plummeted and they've really gone into quite a severe depression or anxiety during this time. I would say, though, that for most people, from talking around my friendship group and work colleagues, they've described these last few months as being like a roller coaster. So there are days when we are really in that healthy side of that spectrum. And, you know, when the sun is shining, when we've heard the birds singing, when we've, you know, have much more to do with nature, we've actually had, I think as Isabel was saying, more time to ourselves. We're not dashing around and we're sort of getting back to basics. And then the next day, or really that afternoon, something might happen. It might be a news article that you've seen on the television, or you might hear of somebody who's been directly affected by the virus. Or it really might just be that you can't get the shopping that you want. Who knows? We all have different triggers, and that actually affects us really quite badly as well. And it's important to recognise that for ourselves. These are not normal times, and also not to judge other people by your own standards, because everybody's different. I just wanted to show this slide because I've heard, I'm hearing this less and less now, but there was a lot of talk at the beginning of this about that we're all in the same boat. And I think it's now the research is coming out that in terms of the likelihood of catching the virus, we're not all in the same boat, because there's all sorts of issues about ages and ethnicity and economics around that. But we're really not all in the same boat, because if you are living in the southwest and you've got a nice big garden and you haven't lost your job and you've got no caring responsibilities, the likelihood you are you're going to have a much more seaworthy boat than you are somebody who's perhaps living in a flat in Bristol with no outdoor space, who's lost their job and has some caring responsibilities. So the expression I've heard, which I love, is that we're not all in the same boat, but we're all in the same storm, and some of us have bigger boats than others. And I think it's important to recognise that, actually, and that's particularly true when it comes to our mental health. So I'm rattling on here with just a few tips. I think probably the most important one, and it's the one that if you're caring for people on a regular basis, goes out the window first, actually, is self-care. And I love this expression, because remember to take care of yourself, because you can't pour from an empty cup. And actually, taking care of yourself can often seem quite selfish when you have responsibilities of looking after somebody else. But if you can turn that round and think that actually it's not selfish, it's completely selfless looking after yourself, because if you can take more time for yourself, you're going to have more energy and mental capacity to be looking after other people. And by that, I mean making sure you eat properly as best you can, making sure you get the best sleep that you possibly can. And we heard earlier about the whole lockdown is affecting people's sleep patterns, but the best you can. But actually, the one that I think is the biggest link to our mental health is being able to take some exercise. And that's exercise that is right for you. Two of us beforehand, not me, but two other people were talking about going out for a run earlier on. But if it's for a walk or just to get some fresh air, whatever the right exercise is for you, there's a proven link between exercise and mental health, a proven scientific link, and an even bigger link between nature and mental health. So if you can take that exercise outside, all the better. The other thing I'd say is to try and establish as much as possible some sort of routine or structure. And it's interesting hearing Tony earlier on that, you know, his wife was going to a daycare centre, as I'm sure a lot of people that you have caring responsibilities were. And when lockdown happened, our structures just went out the window. And we've had a bit of time to get used to it now, haven't we? 101 days. But I would encourage you, if you are struggling with routine, to try and, for your own mental health, to try and establish and get some routine, which means trying to eat at the same times, trying to, you know, go to bed and get up at the same times. You don't have to be regimented about it. And I know certainly for me, it's taken me 2 or 3 attempts actually during lockdown to actually get a routine and structure in my life. And it's not always easy. I do appreciate that. But actually to try and do something the best that you can, and that's all that you can ask. So routine and structure. Oh, Zoom meetings, trying to keep connected. There has never been a more important time to keep connected with people. And bizarrely, it's at a time where we're probably the most isolated. Thank goodness for Zoom is what I would say. And although whilst we're all getting Zoom fatigue, think what this time would have been like without it. We would have been so isolated and restricted. So I would encourage you to make the most of it. Even when you don't feel like talking to people, just know that the chances are it's going to lift your spirits, lift your mood. And if you are struggling with your own mental health, find somebody to talk to. Find somebody outside of your day-to-day situation to talk to. That might be a friend, a relative, or it might be a helpline. Not only somebody to talk to, but somebody who will listen. They don't have to solve things for you, but very often it's just the talking and listening can actually help ease the problem. Gosh, yes, so much news, so much news over the last 3 months. And again, I would encourage you to think about how much news that you are trying to absorb, you're trying to take in. Very early on, I was watching the 10 o'clock news and it was affecting my sleep so much and making me feel so stressed that I've had to stop. I've had to take a view of what I'm taking in, where I'm getting it from. It's important to stay informed, but actually to try not to absorb everything, because statistics and analysis, because people just don't know, it's that uncertainty. I've already had my 1 minute warning, I know, so I'll keep going. 2 last tips really, and yeah, they're all easier said than done, but try to live in the here and now. We've heard a lot of talk about mindfulness. I'm not talking about full-on meditation, but actually, if you're feeling stressed with a situation, stop, take a few big breaths and just concentrate on the here and now. It's that age-old adage that you can't change what happened yesterday, and tomorrow is tomorrow. You can only deal with what you've got in the here and now. And I love this quote, which is from Viktor E. Frankl, who was a Holocaust survivor, an Austrian psychiatrist, so he sort of knows his stuff really. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. That's tough. It's really tough, but you all have the responsibility and the power to actually change your thoughts and processes around the situation that you're in. And the final one is gratitude. There is always something for us to be grateful for. Even in our darkest times, we will always find something to be grateful for. And if you are really struggling and feel that you're in a bit of a deep, dark mood, I would encourage you to start something called a gratitude journal, which means that every day, usually in the evening, you just write a few lines of things that you've been grateful for that day. It sounds a little bit out there, but believe me, it works. I've done it a number of times myself, because what happens is you start to look out every day for the good things, and the things that are not so good to begin to diminish. I'm not going to do the poll actually, because I'm conscious that I've actually taken up a little bit more time than I should do. But I just want to look at this chap. We heard a lot about him, didn't we, in the beginning of lockdown? And whether you agreed for what he was fundraising for or not, there is no doubt that he has that positive attitude that which we all want to adopt. And I'm actually going to misquote Sir Tom. I'm going to say that today is going to be a good day rather than tomorrow is going to be a good day. So if you can think in the here and now, because if you always think tomorrow is going to be the day that's going to get better, tomorrow is going to be the day that let's get better, it's never going to come. But you can think today is going to be a good day. Just finally, really quickly, a few helplines. If you look on the NHS, that's just a screenshot of a whole bunch of different helplines that you might want to look at. The Mind National website has some really good information about your mental health when you're a carer. And I would encourage you to contact your local Mind, which would be your Bristol Mind, actually, because they will all have really good support for you. Certainly in Somerset, we have a 24-hour, 7 days a week support line. So if you feel that you need somebody to talk to, and that has gone from being open just a few hours a day to 24 hours, 7 days a week, as I said, when lockdown happened. And it's proving to be, probably more popular than we'd like it to be, actually, if that's possible to say that. But yeah, thank you very much. That was a rattle through. I'm completely distracted by Tony and is it Emma, the support doll that you've got on your lap there, Tony? Completely distracted by that.
Emily,
thank you, Tony. But thanks very much. Thank you as well. And if anyone's got any questions, sorry, that is a rattle through, but that would normally be done in an hour's session. So thank you.
Thanks, Alison. I think that was so useful, and I'm sure all of us will be able to share with people that we're looking after, I think, and just for ourselves, and just having that time out. And yeah, it's just so important that we do look after ourselves. Tony, do you want to show Emily?
Go in and get this. This is Emily, who arrived today. As you can see, she's the same size as a normal toddler, and you hold her in your arms and she looks at you. And she's lovely, isn't she?
Mm.
So this is our new addition to the family.
I think that's fantastic.
Oh look, there's another one there.
Oh yeah. Can you see Tony? Yeah, Jackie's got one. She was waving.
Yeah, Jackie's got one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Tony. Yeah, this is Emily too, actually.
Yeah, well, there you are.
I've had some amazing results with Emily. Really excellent results. I work in a nursing home, and she's very well loved here. Really, very responsive. People are very responsive to her.
Well, Barbara's only had Emily 2 days, and it worked wonders, really. She just sits here with it in her arms and looks at her,
Yeah.
I think, it's what we were saying before, though, isn't it? It's that need for touch and that need for comfort that we've all been missing, I think, actually. And I know it's just, when you see people for the first time that you haven't seen for so long, you literally have to physically hold yourself back from hugging people. And it's really, really hard. And I think, our work always, we talk about, we've gone from touch to technology in the way that we've had to adapt our services. And it's the thing that we found the hardest. But it just shows how important it is. I think going forward, it's a major learning for a lot of us. One question we've had from Julie, it said, we've adapted, or you've adapted your services wonderfully for lockdown and the easing of it. Do you think statutory services have adapted as well as you, specifically for people with dementia and their carers? And if not, how could they have done this better? And what would help you from GPs? That's quite an interesting question. I think sometimes, from our point of view, I think it's easier sometimes for a smaller charity to adapt a lot quicker. We've got, I suppose, to a certain extent, a lot less red tape, and it's easier for us to kind of be on the ground and be able to adapt. It hasn't been easy at all, especially working with other charities. We've really been able to develop the telephone groups and also the virtual sessions that are now going into care homes. I think from GPs, I think we need signposting in terms of people who need telephone groups. We found them to be absolutely incredible, and actually, the reader are doing them as well. So if people want to signpost people towards them, to get in contact with us, and also the support hub, which is made up of Age UK, us, Playlist for Life, and a few other organisations. But we've actually found that that those who who said they didn't want technology, the telephone is working, and actually some people just listen, and it's just as supportive for those who who are caring as for those who are living with dementia. But I think if we can have signposting from GPs, from people that they know are vulnerable, that actually the group element of it is really, it's what's important. It's linking people up. It's not, I think that's what a lot of people are missing. The befriending's fantastic, having volunteers phoning up on a one-on-one basis, but I think a lot of people are needing that group element. And Zoom, again, I think Jill from Stroke said you've used Zoom. We have as well, and again, but for those who don't always like technology, it's really important. It's important to have both. So have we got any other questions or any other comments on that? Tony, have you got any other comments in terms of statutory services developing and adapting quickly or not?
We've had quite a lot of emails from different organisations, statutory and otherwise, and what we've done, we've just made it, as I say, we send out a BDAA news weekly. So we've just put the links so that we tell all our networks, we tell anybody we come into contact with what's available. And there has been quite a lot of it available. A lot of neighbours have looked after neighbours, but a lot of statutory bodies have tried to care for people. One of the big things, I think, is that Barbara had toothache a couple of weeks ago. Well, when she's got toothache, where do you go? There's no dentist open. They set up 3 hubs, but of course you had to practically be on your deathbed before they'd see you. And when you got there, you had all this PPE and all the new procedures to actually go into it. Appointments were taking a lot longer than they normally were. So although dentists, opticians, GPs and that, they were available in a limited way, trying to get in there was a nightmare, really. Mm. Having said that, there were a lot of voluntary groups that actually went to doctors, for example, and delivered prescriptions. We had that ourselves. 3 ladies came round here and bought Barbara's prescription, which was great. So I think they were trying. How can they do it better? Well, we've never had a pandemic before, have we? So I think there's lessons to be learned from this situation, and they need to be in place not just for the next pandemic, but for a normal life, really.
No, I think that's so true. Nessa says she's found that the new music for dementia radio station is useful as a carer. So again, that's something that we've got to put on there. Someone else said, I wonder if there's any guidance for care staff on wearing PPE around clients with dementia who found it scary. I'm not so sure. I'm not aware of any personally, but it's something that we can always look into. But it is right. I think, for everybody, it's very scary, and especially for those living with dementia, it's very hard. So, brilliant. Has anyone else got any questions or anything? And I think if not, we're 5 minutes over. But thank you all for your time this afternoon. It's been brilliant to see so many, and thank you for your questions. We will be running more of these. We will be sending emails out to follow up. But we would like to carry on and like your input going forward. So we look forward to being in contact. And thank you ever so much for this afternoon, and good luck with everything. So, thank you.